Hello, my grade 4 and 5 pupils. Welcome back to our very e-learning. Last week we started the topic time, average speed, and distances, where I gave us the definitions of the definitions and their units too. I told us that speed is measured in kilometers per hour and meters per second. Distance we say kilometers and meters, and time we say we have hours, we have minutes, we have seconds, and all of that as their units. We also looked at how to convert how to find average speed. We were given the different formulas. The average speed is given as distance all over time, and the time we say is in distance all over average speed, and we say distance is given as average speed times time, and we solve some problems on average speed and time. Today we are going to be solving problems on distances, how to find distances. The distance is given as average speed times time. We have on the board, find the distance covered by a car traveling at 35 kilometers per hour for 4 hours. Find the distance covered by a car traveling at 35 kilometers per hour for 4 hours. I said earlier that average speed is always measured in kilometers per hour and meters per second. So our average speed from the question, our average speed is 35 kilometers per hour, and our time is given as 4 hours. We have to find the distance, and we say distance is given as average speed times time. Average speed times time. So we have 35 kilometers per hour, and our average speed times our time of 4 hours. Multiply 35 by 4 to get 140 kilometers. You have multiply 35 by 4 to get 140 kilometers. But to find the distance covered, given an average speed of 35 kilometers per hour for 4 hours, we have that our average speed is 35 kilometers per hour. Our time is 4 hours. Distance is speed times time. Speed times time. That's 35 kilometers per hour, then times 4 hours. 35 times 4, you have 35 times 4. 4 times 5 is 20, write 0 and carry 2. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 we have 14. So we have 140. So our distance is 140 kilometers. Our distance is expressed in kilometers because our speed is in kilometers per hour and our time is in hours. That's why we have our distance in kilometers. If we had our speed in meters per second and time in seconds, our speed will be in meters. So since we have this in kilometers per hour and our time in hours, so our distance should be in kilometers. So our distance is equal to 140 kilometers. The second one, a motorcycle travels at 34 kilometers per hour. How far will it travel in 2.5 hours? A motorcycle travels at 34 kilometers per hour. How far will it travel in 2.5 hours? Now, our average speed is 34 kilometers per hour. I told us that whenever we see how far will it travel, we are referring to the distance. How long is the time? How far will it travel in 2.5 hours? We are referring to the distance traveled. So we have that our average speed is 34 kilometers per hour. I also remember telling us that we can either write it this way, kilometers per hour, or we can write it this way. It's still the same thing. So we have our average speed at 34 kilometers per hour. Our time, we have 2.5 hours. Then our distance, as we said, is average speed times time. That means we have 34 kilometers per hour times 2.5 hours. That's average speed times time. We can also write this as 34. 34 kilometers per hour times 5 all over 2 hours. 5 over 2 because we express this mixed number to improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, we have 5 over 2. So we have 34 kilometers per hour times 5 over 2. At this point, 2 into itself is 1. 2 into 34 we have 17. 2 into 3 is 1, remainder 1. Here becomes 14. 2 into 14 we have 7. So what we have left is 17 kilometers per hour times 5 hours. 17 times 5 gives us 85 kilometers. So our distance is 85 kilometers. A motorcycle travels at 34 kilometers per hour. How far will it travel in 2.5 hours? And we see that this is our average speed, 34 kilometers per hour, and our time we have 2.5 hours. I will say that how far will it travel? We are referring to the distance. We are referring to the distance. And we are told that distance is given as average speed times time. Average speed times time. So we have our average speed of 34 kilometers per hour times our time of 2.5 hours. We multiply this to get our distance. And we say this in mixed number we express as improper fraction. 2 times 2 we have 4 plus 1 we have 5 all over 2. So 34 kilometers per hour times 5 over 2 in hours. At this point 2 will cancel itself once. 2 into 3 we have 1 remainder 1. We make it here becomes 14. 2 into 14 we have 7. So what we will have left? 17 kilometers per hour times 5 hours. 17 times 5 gives us 85. By long multiplication, 5 times 7 is 35. Write 5 and carry 3. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3. We have 85. So our distance is 85 kilometers. Let's look at other questions. A luxurious bus left Aba at 8:50 a.m. and arrived at Enugu 120 kilometers away at 10:55 a.m. What was the speed at which it traveled? A luxurious bus left Aba at 8:15 a.m. and arrived at Enugu 120 kilometers away at 10:55 a.m. What was the speed at which it traveled? Now we are to find the speed. We are given the distance of. So our distance from Aba to Enugu is given as 120 kilometers. And our time, we are told that he left about 8:15 a.m. and arrived in Enugu at 10:55 a.m. So we check the time interval between 8:15 a.m. and 10:55 a.m. So we say the time interval, we have 10:55 and we have 8:15. We check the time interval. Here we have 0, 5 minus 1, we have 4. 10 minus 8 we have 2. So the time interval is 2 hours 40 minutes. 2 hours 40 minutes. So our time is 2 hours 40 minutes. The bus left about 8:15 a.m. and arrived in Enugu at 10:55 a.m. So now the time interval between 8:15 and 10:55 we have 2 hours 40 minutes. So the time it took the bus to get to Enugu is 2 hours 40 minutes. Now we are given the time. So this is our time, 2 hours 40 minutes. Our distance is 120 kilometers. We have to find the speed. The speed. And we say speed is given as distance all over time. Distance all over time. Now, before we continue, our time is 2 hours 40 minutes. We can express this in hours. We can express all of this in hours. So we say 2 hours 40 minutes 2 hours 40 minutes in hours. For us to do that, we express our 40 minutes in hours. For us to express 40 minutes in hours, we have 40 over 60. When converting from minutes to hours, we divide by 60. 0 cancels 0. We are left with 4 over 6. 2 into 4 we have 2. 2 into 6 we have 3. So we have 2 over 3 hours. So 2 hours 40 minutes. 2 hours 40 minutes is the same as 2 and 2 over 2 over 3 hours. 2 hours we have it, then 40 minutes is the same as 2 over 3 hours. So our time is now 2 over 3 hours. Now we apply the formula. Distance we have as 120 kilometers all over our time in hours. So this can be expressed as 120 divided by, we now convert this to an improper fraction. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 we have 8. We have divided by 8 all over 3 hours. From here, it will give us 120 kilometers times 3 all over 8. 120 times 3 all over 8. Now from here we divide. Let's start with 2. 2 into 8 we have 4. 2 into 12 we have 6. 0 we have 0. So what we are left with is 60 times 3 all over 4. 4 into itself is 1. 4 into 6 we have 1 remainder 2. Into 20 we have 5. So we have 15 times 3. 15 times 3 gives us 45 kilometers per hour. So our average speed is 45 kilometers per hour. Let's go all over it again. A luxurious bus left about at 8:15 a.m. and arrived at Enugu 120 kilometers away at 10:55 a.m. What was the speed at which it traveled? We are given a distance of 120 kilometers and we are not given the specific time of travel. Rather, we are told that he left we are told the time of leaving and the time of getting to Enugu. The time interval between 8:15 and 10:55 we have 2 hours 40 minutes. So the journey took them 2 hours 40 minutes. So we have this as our time. But we have 40 minutes to express all of this in hours. The reason because our distance in kilometers and our time is in 2 hours 40 is in hours and minutes. So our average is supposed to be in kilometers per hour. For us to get that achieved, we have to express these minutes in hours too. So we convert 40 minutes to hours. We say when converting from minutes to hours, we divide by 60. When converting from hours to minutes, we multiply by 60. So in this case, we divide by 60. 0 will cancel 0. We are left with 4 all over 6. 2 into 4, we have 2. 2 into 6, we have 3. So we have 2 all over 3 hours. That's for 40 minutes. 2 hours, 40 minutes will now give us 2 all over 3 hours. So having established that, that's now our time. Our speed is given as distance over time. Our distance, remember, is 120 kilometers all over our time, 2 and 2 over 3 hours. So this is the time as saying 120 divided by 8 over 3. We convert this to an improper fraction by saying 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 we have 8 over 3. So this division line stands for this, it's the same thing as this. So we have 120 divided by 8 all over 3. And it is the same thing as saying 120 times 3 over 8, that's the inverse. We now have times 3 all over 8. 2 into 8 we have 4. 2 into 12 we have 6. Into 0 we have 0. We are left with 60 times 3 over 4. That's 60 times 3 over 4. 4 into itself is 1. 4 into 6 we have 1 remainder 2. Here it becomes 20. 4 into 20 we have 5. So we now have 15 times 3, which is 45 kilometers per hour. So our average speed is 45 kilometers per hour. Alright, let's look at the second question. A car is driven at an average speed of 40 kilometers per hour for 2.5 hours. What is the distance covered? The car is driven at an average speed of 40 kilometers per hour. So we have our average speed as 40 kilometers per hour for 2.5 hours. So our time is 2.5 hours. But to find the distance, we have established already that our distance, okay, so we are given an average speed as 40 kilometers per hour, time of 2.5 hours. So we say our distance is given as average speed times time. Our distance is given as average speed times time. So we have 40 kilometers per hour, that's our average speed times our time of 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. So this will give us 40 kilometers per hour times 5 all over 2 hours. 2 times 2 is 4, but we have 5 over 2, that's an improper fraction. 2 into itself is 1, 2 into 40, we have 20. So we are now left with 20 kilometers per hour times 5 hours. 20 times 5 is 100. So our distance is 100 kilometers. We are given our average speed of 40 kilometers per hour and time of 2.5 hours, and we have to find the distance. We have that distance is given as average speed times time. So we have 40 kilometers per hour times 2.5 hours. We convert this mixed number to an improper fraction. 2 times 2 we have 4 plus 1 we have 5 over 2. So we have 40 kilometers per hour times 5 over 2 hours. 2 into itself is 1, 2 into 4 is 2, into 0 we have 0. So we now have 20 times 5 which is 100 kilometers. So the distance covered is 100 kilometers. I will now give you an assignment. I think that is assignment. The average speed of a car is 72 kilometers per hour and the driver covers a distance of 216 kilometers. How many hours does the journey take? Find the distance traveled by a bicycle for 2.5 hours if the average speed is 40 kilometers per hour. So that's the 2 assignments you will do and submit to me. See you next week. Goodbye and keep on being good pupils.